right, hello everybody. We are back. Now, I'll admit to you right off the bat, week 5 kind of got away from me. And so this is a week 5/6 update. I want to talk to you about a few things. I'm going to show you a quick revision that I've made to the meat bird house. You got a chance to see me moving all of the tractors to a new stretch of grass. So I'll talk about the reason I did that real quick. I'm going to talk about feed and what their daily feed looks like, and I'll also take a moment and show you the troughs that we're using that I've made so that you can get a sort of rough idea how you might make yours. You can see right off the bat that I have one of the birds here at 6 weeks old, and boy, have they grown. I mean, fully feathered. They're certainly not little birds anymore. They're definitely got some weight to them. And at this point, they're filling out. Calm, little, calm, 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 calm. Shush, 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 shh. Okay. You're okay. Okay. At this point, they're filling out really well. Their breasts are starting to grow in width. You can see the size of their feet and the size of their legs. They got these big old chicken haunches that you would expect. And they need every bit of it to support their weight. These birds grow incredibly fast, and even here at 6 weeks, this is nowhere near what they'll be at processing day to yield a 4.5 to 6 pound carcass. So here you see them now at 6 weeks, but don't be surprised 2 weeks from now when they're easily double the size they are now. If I remember from anything from the first round, it was at the last week and a half. They just put on an incredible amount of girth. I mean, they just really filled out in the last week and a half. So anyhow, you can see the bird here, get a nice good look, and then I'm gonna put her down so she's not freaking out. All right, look, let's see those big wings, Lovey. There's the big old chicken wings. All right, okay. See you later. Go run. Go run. See you later. All right, so that brings us back to item number 2. And as stated, I want to show you this little revision that I've made to the meat bird house. Now, one of the challenges that exists is when you go to open up the main door to the chicken coops, they'll want to make a mad bum rush to try to get out. Well, you don't always have the time or the patience to go rounding up 27 to 30 birds and trying to get them all back in. Because if they've eaten, then there's no incentive for them to follow you back into the cage. So what I added here is a very simple sliding hatch door. And all this is a piece of C-channel, galvanized C-channel that you will find next to the galvanized roofing panels. And I simply cut it into 45s, cut out the notch, bent it up, and secured it in. And used a piece of this 3/8 inch Weather Smart Side with a little trim piece on the top and bottom to make the gap tight. And now with the simple handle, the benefit is midday for their second feeding, or if you're going to top off their water, or if you want to toss in some scraps. Instead of having to open up the entire door and let them all run out, you can just simply crack it open, toss the stuff in, and close it up. And it's heavy enough here, and there's nothing for predators to hold on to, so the chances of them getting this open are slim to none. Now, if you wanted to go the extra step and just be sure, my thought was you could take and drill a small hole through this channel here so you could slip a rod through, and that way it would stop its upward movement. So that's another update. Very fluid as we go, adapting and making these things work for us. So now, as you saw a few minutes ago, you saw me move these coop houses quite a distance, well, this one in particular, and you'll see, I mean, for for the size they are and the amount of birds they hold, it's still a very light and manageable solution. I've took them from the smaller area that we had where we're going shorter distances back and forth, and now for this last home stretch, I want to start them far enough on the property that I can just move them this way, closer towards the processing shed, so that by the time processing day comes, they're right there, and we don't have to walk back and forth a distance to bring the birds near. And also putting them on a new area of grass that they haven't seen since the spring, so that we can go ahead and let them come back through and dethatch and de-weed and fertilize as we go. So again, utilizing that symbiotic nature of this relationship here. So now I'll give you a peek at their feeding troughs and what we've been using for feed and water. Give you a little bit closer look to the solutions we've been implementing here with our chickens. So now what we have here is we have 3 iterations of feeders, each with a different approach. Now this is one of our very first approaches to a feeder, and we used this circa our ducks when we were raising the ducks when we first started out. And the benefit of this unit obviously is as long as your birds are constantly fed to where they're not going to aggressively attack one another, you can fill this tube up here, put a watertight cap on the top so that water doesn't get in and muck up the food, and as long as this is out of the weather, this hole can remain accessible, and you have a few days worth of food even for the hungriest of birds. So we have used this in the past, and just recently we've brought this back out to utilize it with the female hens, the layers, a little bit. Now when it comes to the meat bird food, these are both troughs that I made with very few tools and very few parts. It's simply a PVC tube and some 2x4s. And what I did is simply took a line and cut out the gap to my preference here with the PVC, then turned the PVC end to end and put a board here like this and traced on the inside edge of the PVC, took a jigsaw, cut out that piece of 2x4, slipped it in the end here, and secured it with a few screws. Now this is our hanging unit. So inside of the cage, I'll hang this on the cattle panel skeleton, and then with the bungee cord, I'll hang this over here. That way it hangs. It's got a little bit of swaying motion. The birds may try to jump on it, but because it sways, they'll usually jump back off, and that will prevent them hanging and pooping in the food as they eat. Not entirely, but it greatly reduces. Now this is another version of that, made essentially the same way. I cut out my slot, removed it, kind of sanded down the edges to get rid of out any sharp edges, traced the piece of wood, secured it in, and then the only addition is, one second, my birds are going into a yard they don't belong. No, no, no. No, no, no. Get that way. No, no, no. Not for you. Go. Go. Nothing here for you. Go. All right. So as you can see here, this is a very similar version to that, except that this is designed to be a freestanding unit. So in the same fashion, you cut out your slot, you sand down the edges, you put a piece of wood on the bottom here, and you trace the inside edge, cut it out, secure it with some screws. And then the only thing I did differently is I set this again on a piece of wood, but I traced around the outside perimeter or the outside radius of this pipe and cut that piece of wood out here so that you have yourself stands. So we got one on the ground and we got one hanger, 2 trough style feeders that hold plenty of food for the birds. So as they've gotten bigger and their food needs have increased, now we'll put 2 of these down at a time, and that essentially will help curb the tendency of the birds to jump and scratch one another as they frantically go for their food. So in the next 2 weeks, these birds should grow out so that post-processing, we should have a carcass weight of between 4.5 to 6 pounds. I think our average first time around was about 5.5 pounds. So if you figure 27 birds at 5 pounds, you've got about, let's say about 140 pounds of chicken meat, all said and done, with about, if I remember, about $200 worth of inputs. So that's fairly good for a good, natural, healthy, locally sourced protein that my family can enjoy. Hello. That right there is actually one of the birds. Her skin split. No explanation as to why. It's possible she was beat up, but we've also read that because they grow so fast, sometimes that actually does happen. That the skin will just split because it's stretching so quickly. All right, so we'll be back and we'll see you very soon. As always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep at it. We'll see you next time.